Good evening. I'm bringing you a special RedLine USA investigation into one of the most alarming developments in nuclear weapons technology this century. September 3rd, 2017. At precisely 3:30 a.m. Coordinated Universal Time, over 100 seismic monitoring stations worldwide detected a massive earthquake originating from North Korea's mountainous interior. The initial reading, magnitude 6.3. But this was no natural disaster. Within minutes, satellite imagery showed Mount Mantap beginning to collapse. The underground cavity created by the blast was so enormous that the mountain literally caved in on itself. Schools in nearby villages crumbled. Reports emerged of dozens killed, including children buried when their school building collapsed. North Korea had just detonated a hydrogen bomb with an estimated yield of 250 kilotons, 17 times more powerful than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. But here's what truly sent shockwaves through the Pentagon. Just hours before the test, North Korean state media released photographs of Kim Jong Un inspecting something the world had never seen before. A compact, peanut-shaped nuclear device, small enough to fit inside a missile warhead, powerful enough to level an entire American city. Intelligence analysts called it the Peanut, and it represented a terrifying new reality. North Korea had achieved nuclear miniaturization. Tonight, we take you inside the secretive weapons program that has Pentagon planners deeply concerned. This is the story of how the world's most isolated regime built a miniaturized nuclear arsenal capable of reaching the continental United States. Stay with us.
To understand the significance of the Peanut, we need to look at North Korea's nuclear journey. This didn't happen overnight. It took years of testing, failure, and persistence. North Korea's nuclear program began decades ago, but the real acceleration started in 2006 with their first underground test. That test? A near-complete failure. Less than 1 kiloton. So weak that many experts weren't even certain it was actually nuclear. But Kim Jong Un's regime learned from each failure. By 2009, they achieved 4 to 6 kilotons. Progress, but still relatively weak. 2013, 10 kilotons. They were improving rapidly. Then came 2016, a pivotal year. In March, North Korean propaganda released bizarre photos of Kim Jong Un standing next to what looked like a giant metallic disco ball. Western intelligence analysts literally nicknamed it the disco ball. This spherical device was North Korea's first standardized warhead design. What does that mean? It means they could mass produce it. This wasn't a one-off prototype anymore. This was an assembly line. In September 2016, they tested it underground. The yield, 15 to 25 kilotons, comparable to the bomb that destroyed Nagasaki and killed 70,000 people instantly. Think about that for a moment. A weapon capable of instantly vaporizing tens of thousands of people, leveling entire city blocks, and causing radiation sickness for generations, and North Korea could now produce them in quantity. But Kim Jong Un wasn't satisfied. He wanted more power, and he wanted it smaller.
Hey, this is Hassan, a military affairs expert. Let me continue the conversation and describe them more in detail. Now we arrive at September 2017, the moment everything changed. On September 2nd, just one day before the test, North Korean state television broadcast images that stunned Western intelligence agencies. Kim Jong Un was shown visiting what they called the Nuclear Weapons Institute. There, displayed before him was a two-stage thermonuclear warhead. Unlike the disco ball's simple spherical shape, this device had a distinctive peanut-like form. Two bulbous sections connected by a narrower middle. This wasn't just a bigger bomb. This was a hydrogen bomb. The technical term is a two-stage thermonuclear weapon. Let me explain what makes this so dangerous. A regular atomic bomb, what we call a fission weapon, splits atoms apart. That's what destroyed Hiroshima. But a hydrogen bomb is fundamentally different. It uses a fission bomb as a trigger to compress and ignite fusion fuel, forcing hydrogen atoms together. The result? Exponentially more destructive power. But here's the truly alarming part. North Korea claimed this peanut-shaped device was designed to fit on an intercontinental ballistic missile, an ICBM that could reach the United States. The next day, September 3rd, they proved it wasn't a bluff. At exactly noon, Pyongyang time, they detonated this device deep underground at the Punggye-ri test facility. The explosion was so powerful, it registered as a magnitude 6.3 earthquake. Seismic stations in Russia, China, South Korea, Japan, and even as far as the United States detected it instantly. The yield estimates? Between 250 and 400 kilotons. To put that in perspective, that's 17 to 27 times more powerful than Hiroshima. The explosion was so massive that it created an underground cavity that immediately became unstable. 8.5 minutes later, a second earthquake struck, magnitude 4.0, as the mountain collapsed into the void left by the blast. According to seismic research published later, this nuclear test set off aftershocks that continued for 8 months. Scientists discovered the blast had actually triggered movement on a previously unmapped earthquake fault over 5 miles away. The human cost? Reports from inside North Korea spoke of collapsed buildings, including a school where children were killed. Dozens dead, hundreds injured, all for this weapons test. But from Kim Jong Un's perspective, it was a complete success. North Korea announced to the world the DPRK successfully carried out a test of a hydrogen bomb for ICBM. They claimed it had adjustable yield, meaning it could be dialed from tens of kilotons to hundreds of kilotons, depending on the target. Former Defense Intelligence Agency officials and independent weapons experts reviewed the data. Their conclusion? North Korea had likely achieved genuine thermonuclear capability. Dr. Jeffrey Lewis, a nuclear weapons expert, stated publicly, "Welcome to the thermonuclear club, North Korea." The implications were staggering. This wasn't just about having nuclear weapons anymore. This was about having hydrogen bombs small enough to deliver on missiles that could hit American cities. But the story doesn't end with the peanut. In fact, that was just the beginning of a new and even more dangerous chapter. Fast forward to March 2023. Kim Jong Un made another carefully orchestrated public appearance. This time, he visited North Korea's Nuclear Weapons Institute to inspect what they called their newest achievement in nuclear miniaturization. The photos released by state media showed something that immediately caught the attention of weapons experts worldwide. Small, sleek warheads, labeled Hwasan-31. Analysts quickly nicknamed them the Olives because of their compact olive-like shape. These warheads were dramatically smaller than the peanut device, and according to North Korean propaganda photos, they could be mounted on at least 8 different delivery systems, including short-range ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, submarine-launched missiles, and even claimed nuclear-capable underwater drones. Professor Kim Dong-yup from South Korea's University of North Korean Studies analyzed the images and stated these appeared to be miniaturized, lightweight, and standardized warheads that can mount on various vehicles. Here's why this matters. These aren't strategic weapons meant for long-range attacks. These are tactical nuclear weapons. What's the difference? Strategic nukes are the big ones, meant to destroy cities and military installations in an all-out war. Tactical nukes are smaller, designed to be used on a battlefield or against specific military targets. The problem? Tactical nuclear weapons lower the threshold for actually using nuclear weapons. They're meant to be more usable in limited conflicts, and that makes them incredibly dangerous. According to weapons experts who studied the photos, if these Hwasan-31 warheads are operational, North Korea could now arm its entire fleet of short and medium-range missiles with nuclear warheads. That includes missiles that can reach South Korea, Japan, and American military bases throughout the Pacific. Kim Jong Un himself made North Korea's intentions clear. He ordered the exponential expansion of North Korea's nuclear arsenal and the mass production of tactical nuclear weapons. Former South Korean naval officer and current professor Kim Dong-yup warned, now that the delivery vehicles are nearly ready, they would churn out warheads to secure second strike capabilities, perhaps hundreds, not dozens, while running centrifuges even harder to get weapons-grade nuclear material. Let that sink in. Not dozens of nuclear weapons. Hundreds. The Federation of American Scientists released an assessment in July 2024, estimating that North Korea may have produced enough fissile material to build up to 90 nuclear warheads. They believe North Korea has likely assembled around 50 warheads currently, but that number is growing. And here's the most concerning development. According to recent intelligence reports, North Korea has been working intensively on developing MIRV technology. That's multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles. What does that mean in plain English? One missile carrying multiple nuclear warheads, each capable of hitting a different target. This is the same technology that made Cold War-era ICBMs so terrifying. Intelligence sources report that Kim Jong Un issued a direct order to North Korea's munitions industry department. Complete the deployment of miniaturized nuclear warheads and MIRV payloads by the end of 2024. They're reportedly using supercomputer simulations and non-nuclear tests to perfect this technology without conducting actual nuclear explosions, avoiding international detection while advancing their capabilities. Having a nuclear warhead is one thing. Being able to deliver it to a target thousands of miles away is another challenge entirely. So let's talk about North Korea's missile program, because that's what turns these warheads from museum pieces into genuine threats. North Korea has developed one of the most diverse missile arsenals on the planet. From short-range battlefield missiles to intercontinental ballistic missiles capable of reaching the American mainland. Let's start with the ICBMs, the intercontinental ballistic missiles. In 2017, the same year as the peanut hydrogen bomb test, North Korea successfully tested two liquid-fueled ICBMs, the Hwasong-14 and Hwasong-15. These tests proved, for the first time, that North Korea had missiles with sufficient range to strike the continental United States. But liquid-fueled missiles have a major disadvantage. They take hours to fuel before launch, giving adversaries time to detect and potentially destroy them. North Korea knew this, so they developed solid-fuel ICBMs. In 2022, they introduced the Hwasong-17. Then came the Hwasong-18, tested multiple times in 2023. Most recently, in October 2024, they tested the Hwasong-19, a solid-fuel ICBM that U.S. officials confirmed in congressional testimony can deliver a nuclear payload to targets throughout North America. Solid-fuel missiles can be launched within minutes. They're mobile, mounted on massive transport vehicles that can hide in tunnels and move under cover of darkness. This makes them nearly impossible to track and preemptively strike. The U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency assessed in 2025 that North Korea currently has 10 or fewer operational ICBMs. But they project North Korea could possess 50 ICBMs by 2035. Now, intermediate and short-range missiles, these pose the most immediate threat to South Korea, Japan, and American forces stationed in the region. North Korea's intermediate-range missiles include the Hwasong-12, which can reach Guam, and the newer solid-fueled Hwasong-16. Their short and medium-range arsenal is even more extensive. These missiles have been described by UN weapons experts as having aerodynamic flight at lower altitudes and in-flight maneuvers, meaning they can dodge missile defense systems. North Korea has conducted multiple tests of these systems just in 2025 alone, in January, March, and May. Here's what makes this particularly concerning. According to UN experts, North Korea relies on warhead ambiguity to increase its deterrence. What does that mean? It means when they fire a missile test, nobody knows whether it's carrying a conventional warhead or a nuclear one. This ambiguity itself is a form of psychological warfare. And there's one more component to discuss: North Korea's new military relationship with Russia. In 2024, North Korea began supplying Russia with ammunition and military support for its war in Ukraine. In exchange, according to the U.S. Forces Korea commander's testimony in 2025, Russia is expanding sharing of space, nuclear, and missile-applicable technology, expertise, and materials to the DPRK. That means Russia, a nation with one of the world's most advanced missile and nuclear programs, is now actively helping North Korea accelerate its weapons development. The commander's assessment? Russia's expanded cooperation will enable advancements of DPRK's weapons of mass destruction program across the next 3 to 5 years. Let me be clear about what we're discussing here. North Korea now possesses miniaturized nuclear warheads that can be mounted on missiles capable of reaching American cities. And they're improving these capabilities with Russian assistance. So how is the United States responding to this threat? What is the Pentagon doing about North Korea's miniaturized nuclear arsenal? The answer is complex and involves multiple layers of defense, diplomacy, and deterrence. First, missile defense systems. The United States has deployed Terminal High-Altitude Area Defense Batteries, THAAD systems, in South Korea. These are designed to intercept short and medium-range ballistic missiles in their terminal phase. In Japan, the U.S. has upgraded Aegis missile defense systems and deployed Patriot batteries. American naval vessels equipped with Aegis systems regularly patrol the waters around the Korean peninsula, providing an additional layer of defense. For homeland defense, the United States relies on the ground-based mid-course defense system, 44 interceptor missiles stationed in Alaska and California, designed to shoot down ICBMs during their mid-course flight through space. But here's the uncomfortable truth that military planners acknowledge. These systems are not 100% effective. In fact, they're far from it. Missile defense is extraordinarily difficult. Hitting a missile warhead traveling at 15,000 miles per hour is like hitting a bullet with another bullet. And if North Korea successfully develops MIRV technology, multiple warheads on a single missile, the defensive challenge becomes exponentially more difficult. Beyond missile defense, the U.S. strategy relies heavily on deterrence. This is the concept of extended deterrence, essentially, the U.S. nuclear umbrella protecting South Korea and Japan. In April 2023, the USS Nimitz aircraft carrier strike group visited South Korea's Busan port, the first such visit in nearly 6 years. This was a deliberate show of force, a reminder that the United States maintains overwhelming military superiority. U.S. and South Korean forces conduct regular joint military exercises specifically designed to prepare for a North Korean attack. These exercises practice everything from defensive operations to potential counterstrikes against North Korean nuclear facilities. There's also extensive intelligence gathering. The United States maintains constant surveillance of North Korea through satellites, reconnaissance aircraft, cyber intelligence, and human sources. Every missile test, every facility expansion, every movement of personnel is monitored. But perhaps the most controversial aspect of U.S. strategy involves what military planners call left-of-launch capabilities, cyber and electronic warfare measures that could potentially disable North Korean missiles before they even lift off. Secretary of Defense nominee Pete Hegseth stated in his confirmation response to the Senate Armed Services Committee that North Korea is improving miniaturization of warheads, acknowledging the threat while stopping short of discussing specific countermeasures. The U.S. intelligence community's 2025 annual threat assessment was even more blunt. Kim Jong Un views nuclear weapons as a guarantor of regime security and has no intention to renounce them. Translation: diplomacy alone won't solve this problem. The United States continues to push for international sanctions through the United Nations. Multiple Security Council resolutions call for North Korea to abandon its weapons programs in a complete, verifiable, and irreversible manner. But sanctions have proven insufficient. North Korea has become expert at evading restrictions through illicit networks, ship-to-ship transfers of fuel and goods, cryptocurrency theft, and cybercrime. And, with Russia now providing technological assistance in exchange for military support in Ukraine, North Korea has found a powerful backer willing to circumvent international pressure. The unfortunate reality facing U.S. military planners is this: North Korea is now a genuine nuclear power. The window for preventing North Korean miniaturized nuclear weapons has closed. The challenge now is managing and containing this threat while preventing it from spreading to other nations. Let's step back and look at the bigger picture. What does North Korea's achievement of miniaturized nuclear weapons mean for global security? First, it shatters the nuclear non-proliferation framework that has existed since the 1960s. North Korea has proven that a relatively small, isolated nation with limited resources can develop sophisticated thermonuclear weapons despite international sanctions and pressure. This sends a dangerous message to other nations considering nuclear weapons programs. If North Korea can do it, why not Iran? Why not other nations feeling threatened by more powerful neighbors? Second, it fundamentally alters the security dynamics in East Asia. South Korea and Japan are now living under the shadow of a genuine tactical nuclear threat. Both nations are reconsidering their own defense postures, with some politicians openly discussing whether they should develop their own nuclear capabilities. Third, it raises the specter of nuclear terrorism. North Korea is one of the world's most cash-desperate regimes. They've sold missile technology to Iran, Syria, and other nations in the past. Could they sell nuclear weapons technology? Could miniaturized warheads fall into the hands of terrorist organizations? These aren't theoretical concerns. These are questions keeping intelligence officials awake at night. The nuclear weapons Kim Jong Un is building aren't just military hardware. They're his insurance policy. As long as he has nuclear weapons capable of reaching American cities, he calculates that the United States won't risk a military intervention to remove him from power. The cost would be too high. And he's probably right. This is the paradox of nuclear deterrence. Nuclear weapons are simultaneously the ultimate weapon and the weapon you can never use. Their power comes not from detonation, but from the threat of detonation. But here's the danger. North Korea has also developed a nuclear doctrine that contemplates actual battlefield use of tactical nuclear weapons. A September 2022 law outlined conditions under which North Korea would use nuclear weapons, and some analysts believe these conditions lower the threshold for nuclear use compared to other nuclear powers. In a conventional military conflict with South Korea, would North Korea actually use tactical nukes? The frightening answer is maybe. The international community faces limited options. Sanctions have failed to halt the program. Military strikes risk catastrophic war. Diplomacy has been attempted multiple times and collapsed. The last serious negotiations between President Trump and Kim Jong Un occurred in 2019 and ended without agreement. Since then, Kim has shown zero interest in denuclearization talks. So where does this leave us? The United States and its allies are left managing a threat that cannot be eliminated, maintaining strong missile defenses, deterring North Korean aggression through military presence and alliance commitments, monitoring constantly for any signs of weapons transfers to other nations or organizations, and hoping that deterrence holds. That's the world we now live in. A world where the Peanut, that compact, peanut-shaped thermonuclear device unveiled in September 2017, represents a permanent change to the global security landscape. North Korea is a nuclear power. They possess miniaturized warheads. They have missiles that can deliver them across the Pacific, and they're building more. The question is no longer whether North Korea has nuclear weapons capability. The question is how many weapons they'll build, how sophisticated they'll become, and whether deterrence will hold. For RedLine USA, this has been an in-depth investigation into North Korea's miniaturized nuclear arsenal. I encourage you to stay informed, stay aware, and understand the threats facing our nation. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and stay with RedLine USA for the latest in military and security news.